the soul space. And just going to move this light a little bit. As you can see, I'm still in my home studio. We haven't made our way back to the studios at Gov's Comedy Club yet. I have to fix lighting and all these things. So how are you guys all doing today? I hope that you will tell me how you're doing in the comments. I'd love to hear. And ta-da! Let there be light. Ah, much better, right? Still not got the lighting right, but we'll figure it out in a few minutes. So I want to thank you all for tuning in. Tonight is going to be a really great show. I actually am going to talk to you about some really interesting stuff as soon as I get started. Here we are. All right, so I hope you will share our show as we're watching today. Sorry, I'm still actually trying to set everything up. Just working hard on stuff. Okay, here I am. Here I am. Sorry it's taken so long tonight. I'm just trying to get settled. Okay. Bring this out a little bit. Hope you didn't look up my nose there. This is what happens when you have amateur, right? It's like amateur hour because we don't have our engineers and we're not at Gov's. Okay, you guys ready for a show? Ta-da! Here I am. You didn't know all that went on before I usually am online, huh? So welcome to the Soul Space. I'm Georgia Rose from Zen Kuda. And I am a psychic intuitive, an astrologer, and hopefully an inspirational being when I'm not fooling around with all the technology we have to do to actually get online these days. So, boy, the energy out there in the world is something else, isn't it? I think that we're all trying our best, but I don't know how well we are assimilating to this. But yeah, we'll all get the hang of it sooner or later. So I'd love for you guys to all let me know how you're feeling about the energy. I'd love some comments and let me know what your situations are, what you're feeling, how this energy is affecting you. That's what the Soul Space is all about. We're a community that supports one another during challenging and successful times. So I am going to share our broadcast because that's what we do here at Gov's Comedy Club. And if you want to tell your friends we're on, that'd be great. And I'm seeing who's on so far today. That's awesome. So please do use the comments. Hi, Sally. I know Sally's going to be mad at me because I was a little bit late tonight, but that happens sometimes, you know? So if you're online and you're watching, just give me a little shout out in the comments so that I can see that you're out there. So I have to tell you, the energy was kind of affecting me a little bit this week, and that's actually what I decided to base the show on, because I was doing a lot of watching the news, something I really don't do very often, and I don't know, I started to get really too into it, like to the point where it was affecting my day, and there was actually a couple of nights when I couldn't sleep, and that's really unlike me because usually things like that don't bother me, and also I do censor myself a lot when it comes to media for that very reason. You know, I'm an empath. An empath is someone who feels things very deeply on a soul level, and an empath is someone who picks up the energy of the universe. And we're going to talk about that a little bit today in order to talk about frequencies and how we live in frequency. But getting back to the energy that's out there, I found myself really watching the news and all kinds of media, and really it was affecting me deeply. And I remembered that I was this way back in 2008 for a little while. I got very into the political arena and watching the financial news and the politics on a really huge basis. And I would become obsessed with it almost and watch CNN and Fox News Channel and Squawk Box and business news 24 hours a day. So I went back to that time in my life, 12 years ago, to see what is it that was making me relive this pattern. And aside from some of the astrology, which is where it was 12 years ago, I realized that I was doing it because I literally wanted to escape my reality. You know, it was almost a question of, if I go in this box, you know, this tube on the wall, this box, this computer, inside that for a little while, I don't have to face what's really going on. And what's really going on, even though it's obviously a reflection of what we're seeing in this box, it's different. Because for that little time period when we step into that media, we are now living these things through someone else's rendition, through someone else's feelings and lens. And so we get a break from it in a weird way while we're actually becoming obsessed with it. So I don't know if that makes sense to anybody else, but that's how I felt about it. Hi, Anthony. Hi, David. So glad Sally's there. Sally, when are we going to be back in the studio? I hope soon. I know we're renovating. And I'm actually trying to share the program now, but I can't find where it says copy link. So give me a few minutes with that, guys, and then we'll get back into our conversation. So I'd love it if tonight you could let me know how this energy is affecting you, you know. I don't know, Sally, if you're out there and you can share this on my page, just do that for me, because I don't know why the button is gone that I usually use to share. It's so weird. Mercury's retrograde. It's bothering me. So anyway, so on the one hand, I was using a harsher reality than my own to escape my own, but on the other hand, I wanted to see what was going on all the time. And I think that's because we get lost in the constructs and the conditioning of what people tell us we should be doing. And it's almost in our face, we feel it deserves our attention. We've been conditioned to think that. And I hope, if nothing else, after this broadcast tonight, I change your reality about that. Because I truly believe that just because something is in our face, it really does not always deserve our attention. That you kind of see it the way I do by the end of this broadcast, or at least have a different perspective than the one you may already have. And if you've got a really high perspective, then so be it. You don't have to change a thing, right? So I got it. Okay. I'm going to share it now. So I'd love to hear how you guys are being affected by this, and what you're thinking of what's going on out there. And we'll look at the comments in a minute, just putting the show on the Zenkuda Facebook page. So for all you out there, if you're looking for where to find me, you can actually find me on Gov's Comedy Club Radio.com. You can find me on their Facebook page. And then you can also find me on Zenkuda on Facebook, and you can find me on Zenkuda Official on Instagram. And I have a YouTube channel, Zenkuda. There's over 80 videos on there, including all the Soul Space podcasts. And we also have a website, Zenkuda.com. Share away, right? Okay. So when we think about the fact that we oftentimes get the feeling that because something's in our face, it deserves our attention. And sometimes those things are things that we really don't like, but we're giving them our attention. So when we do that, we're contradicting what we really want for our lives, right? But just because something's in our face does not necessarily mean that it does deserve our attention. We have to be a little bit more diligent about thinking about the things we want instead of giving attention to the thing, excuse me, to the things that we don't want. And I think a lot of times when we get mesmerized by media, excuse me, or TV, this video has got to be one of the worst ones yet. It's just too much. What can I say? I'm tired of doing it from home, Sally. I want in on that studio. So I'm going to backtrack a minute. So we see things and we give them our attention, but they're things that we really don't want. And when we do that, we're taking on the frequency of those things, even if we don't realize it. I'll give you an example. You're in the supermarket and there's a kid that's having a temper tantrum. This 2-year-old's throwing himself on the floor and having this huge temper tantrum. And you don't want to be involved in it, but you can't help but just keep looking at that kid. You that you have to give it your attention because it's happening. And it's almost like you feel shame or guilt if you don't participate, or if you don't at least acknowledge it's happening in some way. And that's because we're conditioned to do that. But when we do things like that, we're actually defying the universal laws of life. And the reason I say that is because even just feeling that, you see it, you don't want to see it, I don't want to be part of this, you're walking away, but the energy's already changed within you. You're already part of it because you're already either feeling sorry for the kid, or disturbed by the screamings, or questioning and judging the parent, or being embarrassed for them, or some emotion. So your frequency has changed. So it's the same way when we see something on television, or we listen to a politician, or an activist, or someone that we really don't want to listen to, but for whatever reason, we're giving that thing our attention. And so we live in a world that's built on the law of attraction, and yet we spend a huge part of our day looking at things and participating in some way in the frequency of things that we really don't want in our life. And if you think about it, I'm just going to let that thought sit for a minute, because when you think about it, how many times a day do we do that with so many, many different things? So many different things. I'm guilty of it. I think we all are. And so I think one of the things the universe is asking of us right now is to really pay attention to those things that we give our attention to. And the reason why I think it's so important, especially now, is not just because there's so much going on in the world that we probably really don't want to allow in, or we don't want to participate in, or we don't really want to see or feel. But I also feel like we need to spend much more time thinking about what we do want in our life, because the universe is set up that way, normally, as the law of attraction applies. But also, there's a lot of astrology in play right now that's giving us beautiful energy to really focus on the things we want to be able to manifest them. And the other reason why I think that is because if we take this a step further, right, the things that we, let me just share this. This will be my last share, I promise. There we are. It's weird when you see yourself here, there. I'm like, what am I? Okay. So, the other reason why it's so important right now to focus on the things we want and not on what we don't want is because the things that we focus on become what we worship. And there's a lot of astrology really good energy for manifesting the things that we want and for worshiping them. And I'm not talking about material things. I'm talking about our connection to divinity. It's a great time for meditations and devotions and rituals and prayer in order to manifest. Never has the planets been so aligned for this as they are right now. And so it's really, really important for us to stay on point with the things that we really want. And I'm going to go into that a little bit further tonight. Think about, what do you worship? And when you really go deeply in this and even meditate on it the next time that you're in your spiritual devotional time, or whatever it is that you call your personal connection every day, when you visit and you have a cup of tea with God, or whatever you want to call it, I call it being in connection. In my life, I need to go home right now, or I'll talk to you in an hour. I have to go into connection. That is the way that I've always thought. My original spiritual business was Georgia Rose Connection. That was in the early 2000s. So when we're in connection, whatever that is for you, it could be Reiki, it could be cards, it could be crystals, it could be just a regular meditation, it could be going out into the light. When you're in that connection, think about what you worship. And I know that your answers are going to be, oh, I worship the angels or God, or I have a connection to this alignment with this guide. But what I'm really talking about is what's on your mind all day long. What do you think about all day? Because you're worshiping that and you don't even know it. Our thoughts become a worship. Our thoughts become devoted to certain things. Think about it. When you were, even when we were younger, we wanted, like, I don't know, a pair of roller skates. We thought about it all the time. We worshipped those roller skates before we got them. Maybe you have someone on your mind that you want to have a relationship with. You're worshiping that person. You may not even know them. Some people think about animals or taking a trip, or you're worshiping those things. So when we think about and we go over these things in our mind, what we worship is what we create our reality with. That becomes your reality. The pursuit of it, the possession of it, the connection with it becomes your reality. So when you think about it that way, controlling your thoughts and controlling your mind to be focused on the things you really want becomes such a high octave of energy. It's a frequency. I was recently watching a TV program on Gaia about how every sound has a frequency, and they took an experiment. I saw this a long time ago, and I just recently saw it again. They did an experiment where they put sand on a metal plate and then played sounds and music and words, and the sand would always take on a vibrational pattern with the words repetitively. If you play the same words, it would be the same pattern. Play other words, another pattern would come, and then go back to the original word, and it would do the pattern it did before. And what this proves is that every sound has a frequency. Our words have a frequency. So think about what you're worshiping with your words. What are you putting out there in the universe? You know, something as simple as I hope I can pay my bills this month becomes a frequency, and it's a frequency of lack. So be very, very careful in your manifestation of your daily life, in your manifestation of creating your own reality, that you create this reality based on the things that you really want. Because a lot of us start to create our realities based on the things we really don't want, and we don't even realize that we're doing it. And then when life starts to happen around us and different things start to take on a different energy, it's because the frequency we've given with the sound of our words and the things that we're taking in and the media that we, because it's in our face, think it deserves our attention, we're creating a reality by that. And now I'm not going to get political tonight, and I'm not going to get into what's happening on the world stage tonight, because I don't want to any longer take that into my reality. I'll know enough of it to be able to be in reality, because, you know, obviously we want to be in reality in the third dimensional world, but I'm not going to take enough of it in so that I am becoming now devoted to it, giving energy to it, and it's entering into my frequency to the point where I'm recreating it as my reality. And that's what we're doing. We're emanating frequencies and recreating the reality. Every time there's a post on a news feed about a video of someone being violent, or a video about a confrontation or a conflict, you just put your frequency there. By watching it, by recreating it, by repeating it, you just put your frequency into that communication. You put your frequency into that vibration. So in doing that, you are creating more of what you don't want. And so we need to create our reality based on the things we worship being things we really want. And a few weeks ago, I did a podcast about living from our interior life. And it was very similar to this message tonight, but a little bit different. And I want to elaborate on that. I did a podcast, I was actually editing it today, about how we need to make our choices and form our opinions based on our interior, our soul, what's really in here. And that is living Zen Kuda. That is the idea behind Zen Kuda. We are very ambitious and very straightforward and very protective of our Zen, almost like barracudas. So that inner fire in us becomes about our Zen. And you add a little Zen and a little barracuda, and you become Zen Kuda. And what that means is that when we see things out in the world, when we see the reality that we've been conditioned to believe deserves our attention, and it does not, because it's vibrating lower than we should be vibrating. So that philosophy, that conditioning, that what's in our face deserves our attention, would not be able to sustain itself if we judged it, or we evaluated it, or we observed it, allowed the sensation of it to be processed through our inner soul, our interior, our inner life. Then it becomes a really different reality. And that's what I'm trying to say tonight, is we create our reality based on the constructs that we've been given to believe, and they are absolutely in complete defiance of universal law. Universal law says we should live from our soul, and we should process things from our inner light. universal law says that we should create a reality based on the highest vibration we can be in. We are not supposed to create a reality based on the things that the earthbound world tells us if they put it in your face, it deserves your attention. Because the things that the world is putting in your face, most of them do not deserve your attention. What they deserve is love and compassion. Separating the third dimensional world from the world in your soul and what you know to be right. And so that's your vibrational power. And that's the real moral, the real purpose of our story, is to get our vibrational power so high that we are functioning as a different evolution of society. We're functioning as a different species of society. And so when we allow ourselves to start to process what's going on around us by that inner light, that inner voice, that inner feeling, then it becomes a reality that is not disturbing to us because we're vibrating so high. We're not going at the frequency that those other things are going. Just looking at my notes here. So when you're trying to manifest things and create your reality, make sure that you match your vibrational frequency with the things that you want, not the things that you don't want. All right? Because the things that you worship in your daily life are the things that are going to be your reality. And you want the things that you want to emanate from you in the same frequency. So you must think about those things. We've been taught to live differently. We've been taught to live in a way that, like I say, the things that are put in front of us deserve our attention, and they really don't, most of them. I'm just going to dim this light a little bit because it's very, very bright. Talk amongst yourselves. Okay, so I'd love to hear your comments and about what I'm saying so far. Words have a power. They really do, Aaron. And I forget that sometimes, you know, and it's easy for us to forget it, especially, you know, when we're out with friends, or we're out, you know, we're relaxing and we're maybe not really that conscious of things, and we're kind of on automatic pilot, and we start to maybe gossip, or we start to like talk about something we saw on TV in a negative way. That's our vibration. So just remember, words are your vibration. Words are your vibration. Words give you your frequency, and so do other things that you take in. So realize that. Realize your reality, you know. And so once you start to really use that inner soul, that, you know, you're living Zen Kuda, you're powerfully Zen, you're protective of your Zen, right? And once you start to live that way, what happens is, now when something gets placed in front of you that, you know, the world is telling you deserves your attention, well, it might vibrate differently than what you know. Because now you're living in your interior, you're living from your soul, and now you know what you know, and you know it to be true, and you know it to be your truth. And so now when something's put in your face or cards dealt to you on the table, you're very strong. You become very strong in the fact that, no, this isn't really my frequency. This doesn't resonate with me. This really isn't what I want. And you cast it aside. You maybe think about it not being what you want for maybe a second, and then cast it aside and focus on what you do want. Don't stay in the what you don't want. And that's what a lot of us are doing these days, is we're staying too much in the energy of what we don't want. So know what you know, because you have to know it in order for it to happen and become your reality. Does that make sense? When you're trying to manifest something, you must know it. You must know it. And then it becomes real. In that moment when you know it, it is now in your reality. It is now manifested. So we can focus on that thing we don't want. Right? It's just like, you know, I have some things on the table here, and, oh, I don't want this crystal there. I'm going to put it over here. And then someone comes in and says, oh, your table looks really nice. Oh, well, I had this crystal here, but I didn't want it there, so I put it over there. How many times do we do that? Why are we focusing on what we didn't want? Instead, the table is this way. You don't even think about it as ever any other way, because why would you think about what you don't want? And we manifest like that, and we do that all day. And then at the end of the day, we wonder, why did that happen? You know, that wasn't what I wanted. Nothing ever works out the way I want, because you're focused on the way you don't want it. And I think this is a really big lesson for us now with everything that's going on in the world, So really censor the things that you don't want, because we're getting a lot of them lately. So chime in, everybody. I don't know how many people are online. I'm just looking at my notes. So remember, what you're thinking is your absolute vibrational frequency, and there is something out in the world that will match that frequency. So be really, really careful what you are spending your time on. Brief second on what you don't want, and all back to what you do want. And the other thing is, stop knowing stuff you don't want to know. And this is a big one for me this week, because I kept watching media and news that and seeing stuff I really didn't want to see. And then the fellow said, "Why are you watching this?" You know. So stop knowing stuff and stop seeing stuff and stop watching stuff you really don't want to, because you're becoming that. And the other big lesson I learned this week was, stop making someone else's reality your reality. Wow. Stop making someone else's reality your reality. That came to me upon waking up one morning. And I'm going to go back to the analogy that I used about, you're in the supermarket and someone's child is acting out. And so, you walk by it and in your head, you're like thinking, I'm not even going to look. I'm not even going to look. I don't want to be part of this. I don't want anything to do with this. This is really not a good scene. And then you're walking away and you're upset, embarrassed, you feel a little squirrely, you're like, oh my God, I'm glad maybe it's not your kid, you feel bad for the parent, whatever. In those moments when you're thinking like that, their reality became your reality. You went so deep into that experience that only lasted a brief few seconds that reality became your reality. Don't let it in. Don't let someone else create your reality. Be the observer. Don't even worry about it. It's got nothing to do with you. Remember that you have that control. And for all of you out there that are saying, oh, but, I feel bad, or oh, but, that's because you're conditioned to believe that the things in front of you, the things that are put in front of you deserve your attention. And not everything that's put in front of you deserves our attention. Isn't that cool? Man, if you could master it, if I could master that, if you guys could master that, if we all could master that, wow, we'd all really be minding our own damn business. So, we owe it to ourselves, and we owe it to our attention to censor what becomes our frequency. And this is the difference between a lot of successful, happy people and other people. Successful, happy people focus on what they want. It's true. Successful, happy people don't focus on what they don't want. Have you ever had a boss who was really successful and you go in and you tell him an issue and it's like he didn't even hear you? Well, because he knows it's going to work out. He knows what he knows, and he's not going to go into that frequency, because that'll get him more of the frequency. So think about that. Really, you have to live completely expanded into creating the reality you want to feel good. So how do you do that? You only do things you like. You only do things that feel good. I know every one of us has things we have to do during the day that maybe aren't always pleasant, but we have to find a way, a philosophy to bring pleasantness to them. And usually compassion or forgiveness or love does that. Like maybe you hate laundry, but maybe you could use laundry as a devotional. That, you are cleansing, or you are, burning away debris, or you're doing this loving act for your family, So there's a way to expand your reality to make the things you must do that aren't pleasant for you pleasant. Only do what you like, because the frequency has to stay pure in that. All right, so any questions? Hey John, how are you? Hi Donna, Ferlino. Hi Monica. Hi David. There's 5 planets in retrograde right now. So Sally, Janine, Angelique, RJ. Okay, everybody's sharing the show. That's great. So I'd love to hear some comments about how you guys are dealing with this energy, because I really believe right now it's really, really important for us to keep our frequency really high, and it's not easy to do. The other thing I want to talk about really quickly is our ability to connect with divinity, our ability to stay in our daily rituals and prayer. Never has it been more important for us to connect on a deep level with Spirit, God, Buddha, Kuan Yin, the angels, elementals, fairies, aliens, Palladians, whatever you believe in, whatever is a higher power for you. Never has it been so important as it is now to connect with those energies and to do it on a daily basis. The reason being that manifestation is at an all-time high, and there's a lot of frequency in the world, like I was just describing, that's not a high frequency. So you want to make sure that your energy is in relation to that in a higher way. When we tap into the frequency of the world, we have the opportunity to give out to the world a higher octave of energy or give a low octave of energy to the world. And what we really want to do is put out a really super high octave of energy to the world. And that's what most healers and light workers and psychics and intuitives do on a daily basis. I have rituals that I do daily, and they could be anything for you, from a quick meditation out in nature to maybe you go to mass, or maybe you have a worship that you do. But it's really important right now for us to all engage in some kind of a daily practice that keeps the frequency high and sends that out to the world, because the world is in a little bit of chaos right now. And for every action, there's a reaction, like a ripple in the pond. So those of us who have a high vibration, we really need to send that out to the world every day on a daily basis so that we can partake of allowing the universe to heal and be part of that universe to heal. So I don't know if anybody has any questions for me about this energy. I'd love to take some. And if you could, basically just give me some feedback on how the energy has been for you. I know we have a lot of things to deal with, from the COVID pandemic, which seems to be still an issue in some areas, to a lot of unrest that we have. But I think that we need to create our own reality and live our interior lives. Sometimes I don't see all the comments until afterwards, so. Here we are. Okay. Okay. So the other thing I wanted to talk about was we've had a lot of really crazy weather going on. And I know weather seems like a really crazy topic, but the thing of it is that a lot of times the weather is determined by the astrology and the planets and things like that. And Mars just went into Aries today, and Mars in Aries is fire. So don't be surprised if you see more forest fires or earthquakes or things happening with like the fiery type of weather in the earth. I know we're having this huge dust storm coming up from the Sahara Desert, and Mars in Aries is also very arid and dry. And so when you watch the astrology, you'd be surprised how much it really does take advantage of and change the weather. So I think that especially here in the Northeast where I am, we're going to have a really hot, dry summer because of that Mars in Aries. And Mars usually stays in Aries about 5 weeks or 7 weeks, and this time, because of retrogrades, it's actually going to be in Aries almost 7 months. It's a really long time for us to have that Mars in Aries. The planet Mars happens to like being in Aries because it's its home sign. Mars is fire, it's war, it's aggression, and Mars loves being in that hot, fiery Aries energy because it really gives it a lot more energy to go forward and propulse things. So it'll be really interesting summer to see where that Mars in Aries affects all of us. And I think that's also going to amp up some of the energy in the world as far as anger and conflict goes. And that's why I wanted to do this podcast tonight about the energy being sourced from your interior instead of allowing energy to be created by the reality that's in the world and allowing that reality to create your own reality. Really don't want to do that. One of the things that I find so peaceful and so helpful is nature, whether it's going out for a bike ride or going by the ocean or just in the forest. And when you do that, you connect with things in a different way. So you have to very important in this climate of, you know, all the things that are being stressful to us. It's very, very important to unplug. So if you guys have any ways that you have been able to unplug, I'd love to hear about those. Okay, so there's crickets out there tonight. Trying to make the best of it. I really can't do a show unless I have feedback. But I guess I'm just going to talk for another half hour. So, don't know what that means. Lois. Okay, so I'm going to pick a soul card for world energy. I'm not doing card for people tonight. I'm just not doing that. I just want to stay in the message that we have for this broadcast. So, so Mars is going into Aries. Venus came out of retrograde, so that'll also help move the energy a little bit. I saw someone wrote online say that Venus coming out of retrograde would give us more compassion. That's really not what the planet Venus is. Venus is really more of a planet that is about what we want and how we want to get it. You know, Mars and Venus are what we love and how we get it. It can be very challenging to stay in good thoughts these days, and that's why it's so important to manifest our reality based on our own interior and not on the exterior of what's going on in the world. So this card is for world energy. Yeah, it actually sums up the world energy, okay. It's a card of opposition. It's a card of opposites. But if you, I'm going to show you on camera, but if you look at the side of it's two people, one upside down and one right side up. And if you look at the one that's right side up in the light, it has another person on it who looks like a light being. So this to me speaks of what I'm talking about, is that we need to source our lives from the light within and not be so into the controversy and the chaos that's in the world. Look at this photo, very interesting. It really does speak of what's going on in the world, opposing points, right? Look at that. And the one on the right, the little light, has this figure. You can see it. It's kind of wrapped up in their, what would be their ear or their head. And it's really about listening. You know, I think those who listen will have more light in their life. And that really speaks volumes about what's going on in the world, doesn't it? So I'm going to just go back in my notes for a minute. So I think one of the ways to keep thinking good thoughts also is to surround yourself with people who are positive. I know that sounds really cliche, but when we do that, we pick up their vibration. And that's the other reason why it's so important to connect, because that connection, that nourishment will keep your vibration high, and it's really important for us all to do that. And I want to talk, that's the other thing I wanted to talk about tonight, I forgot, was angels. I know that's a complete switch to a different topic. But angelic energy has been really, really prominent right now. And I don't know if anyone else has felt that, that's out there, but the angels have been really, like, you could feel them sometimes in such a deep, profound way. And I truly believe that the angels are out there almost like waiting for us to call them in. You know, they're circling the globe. And angels can't help us unless we ask for it. And I wanted to put that out there because I think a lot of times we wish and we hope, we forget to ask. So when you're in those daily devotional and you're in that prayer, make sure that you are asking for help from divine sources. You're asking for help from the angels. You're asking for help from above, you know, because I think that we forget that. And also when you see things that you don't want to manifest, whether it's in your local daily practice of shopping or going for your walk or whatever, going to the office, or it's on the television or the iPad or whatever. When you see things that you really don't want to take in, put an angel there, put love there, just, you know, put a divine being there and walk away, and don't let it in your reality, know that those divine beings are going to take care of whatever needs to be taken care of in that reality. And I think that's a really good tool to use to keep yourself pure of heart and to keep yourself in the reality you really want to be in. Because God knows that everything is very, very heightened right now. The planets in retrograde become really, they heighten our sensitivities, all in different ways, because every planet has a different spiritual message for us. But retrogrades heighten our feelings and heighten our connectivity, and they heighten our sensitivity, because whatever vibration that planet gives out, whatever spiritual message that planet holds, when it slows down, it becomes more intense because they're closer to the Earth. So when planets are retrograde, it's really a time that you kind of want to lay low and maybe do your planning and think about what really is important to you, what you value, what you really want in your life, how you want your life to be, but don't quite execute it yet. And I know Mars and Aries will want us to go forward and move forward with a lot of progression, a lot of, positive things, but I would hold off on recreating anything right now or creating anything, because I think it's going to change your ideal of what it is, your execution of what it is going to change before the end of the summer with this energy. So just know that by connecting with divinity and co-creating with that energy, whatever that is for you, by connecting with that, that's really where you create your reality. You don't want to create your reality by what other sources are putting in front of you and telling you deserves your attention, because most of those things do not deserve your attention. So I'm just going to ask for a little inspiration from spirits. I want to talk a little bit about the eclipse that happened on the summer solstice, June 20th, because people say, oh, well, nothing happened or whatever. No. Eclipses ignite something that will be with you for 18 months. So this energy is playing out. It's not like, boom, something happens overnight. Mars going into Aries is actually going to touch that eclipse point. So we will feel a great change of energy if you haven't already felt it today. So just know that you want to hold that place. You want to go forward and think about your perceptions and think about your interior work, and then hold that place, like putting a bookmark in it, because it's going to change. There's still some illusion out there in the world, and that's going to change before your final product is ready to be shown, whatever that is, whether it's a project, a relationship, a new job, whatever it is, it will come into manifestation better in 2021. Eclipse points are very powerful, and they are usually obvious symbols. Once we take the 18 months and we look back, we're like, oh yeah, that's what that was. Oh yeah, that's what that was. That's what it was. So know that that's usually how eclipses work. The events that occurred on that solstice on the 20th are very important. You just might not know about them yet. A lot of times things are orchestrated behind the scenes. So yeah, and I know, John, you meditate every day, which is great, because it keeps the frequency in a level. Like, how when you're on a diet, they tell you, oh, keep your blood sugar from spiking, right? Well, it's that way with your vibrational frequency. You want to keep it good. You don't want it to go down and then back up and down and then back up. You want to keep your vibrational frequency really good so that when it does have the chance to ascend and increase, it does it much more easily. Feathers usually, Marianne, are angelic, as you know, and I feel the angelic energy very, very much around. I have my own personal symbols of when angels come in. And for most of this broadcast, I couldn't hear out of my right ear. There was a very high-pitched ringing, and usually that's when the angels are trying to speak to me. So just a little thing there. But they're definitely prominent. I can feel them. I believe they are really circling the earth and waiting for us to call them in. So maybe all together tonight we could just say, angels, come now. Angels, please save our world. And if you just do that every night before you go to bed, I'm sure you will have an angelic visitation. You may not remember it, but I'm sure you'll have one. And there's also an angel associated with every zodiac sign. So angels are all about everything in the world. I'm just going to take a minute to do a shameless plug for my YouTube channel. And I am really putting a tremendous amount of videos on there, so if you would subscribe to that, that would be great, because then you'll be alerted when videos come out. I will be actually backing off the Facebook platform for that kind of media. I will be doing more on YouTube instead of Facebook, because I feel like Facebook is getting extremely overstacked with energy that I don't want. So So remember, what happened during the solstice is going to keep continuing over the next 18 months, and that beautiful eclipse that happened. We are being eclipsed, as someone told me recently. So that's pretty much all I got. So I need you guys to tell me what else you want to know. Astrologically. The reason why I say your projects and your things and your dreams and your hopes and your wishes and whatever you're trying to put together right now, the reason why I say it's best to ignite it in 2021 is because at the end of this year, we have a Jupiter-Pluto conjunction which carries out the energy that began this past January. So it's almost like a year where we come full circle. When that happens, it's the last in a series of what we've been going through for the last 2 years. So when that finally happens in the beginning to mid-December, the energy completely changes and we go into a whole new phase in 2021 that is a new phase of energy for the next 200 years. So we're completing a 200-year cycle right now, and not a lot of astrologers talk about that because it's very deep to say, but we are completing a 200-year cycle of energy right now. And so in 2021, there's going to be huge shifts where everything will feel much more different, more refreshing, more futuristic instead of past. We're in the past a lot right now because we're breaking down structures and constructs and conditioning that we've had. That will end towards the end of this year, and you're going to see now a little bit of that still happening, but more of the restructure, of the breath of fresh air coming in. Things will begin to really be more airy and light and futuristic and inventive. And so that's why I say 2021 is really where we should be looking for. And it's only 5 months. Yes, it's true, John. The more you meditate, your vibration increases. And what most people who do a daily meditation practice can tell you is that in the beginning, a lot of people complain that it's hard to meditate and they won't be able to connect. It's like their thoughts get distracted all the time. But the more they do it, then all of a sudden they become really, really great at meditating. You can just drop in anytime, anywhere. It's a practice. It's just like anything else. We're training our minds to do something. So the more that we meditate and raise our vibration, because now it's easier for us to connect and we're connecting with higher realms. Every time your meditation practice undergoes a change, usually that change means that you have now visited a higher realm. Most of the time when I meditate now, I'm usually somewhere between the 7th and 9th dimension. A lot of times the 9th dimension, and that's complete light being. When I meditate, my body disappears. I'm just light. So that takes a daily practice for years. When I meditate, I immediately go into visions. I can go into a meditation and ask for something and then immediately see the vision of it. What does this mean? And they'll show me almost like a movie. Partly that's my higher self. Partly that's my subconscious, and partly that's my guides leading me somewhere and divine energy. But we all have the ability to do that. It's just a practice and a devotion. How many hours a day can we realistically sit on the mat? For most of us, not many. But you don't need to sit on the mat for hours and hours. You just need to go back every day for whatever period of time you can. And when you start to do that, usually even after the first month, you see a marked difference in your ability to connect. And you'll start to receive psychic messages. You'll start to receive very, very, very clear flashes and clarity of intuition. Our minds are made to connect in that way. The reason why that makes it easier, as John Mineta just wrote, to deal with the retrogrades is because when you are going into a meditation, you are connecting with the creator of all that is. So you are connecting with the energy that created those planets. You are connected with the energy that created you, created everything in the world, created the fact that they're retrograding, created the COVID virus, created everything that is going on. So when you connect with that energy, you're above everything else. Your frequency is in a place where almost none of that matters, and you become completely one with the universe and universal law, that we're all connected through that frequency. So that's why when you do those things, when you do those meditations, you become of that frequency, not just visiting it. Now, after the meditation ends, you are that frequency in the world. Maintaining it is where the challenge comes in, and that's why you have to do it every day, or have some practice that puts you into that place every day. It's like exercising a muscle. I used to do meditation classes, David. I don't do them anymore. I'm sorry. So coming up, our next podcast is, of course, next Thursday at 6:30. I am suspending the Tuesday Night Lives at 7 o'clock for the next